Welcome, everyone, to another episode of 3, 2, 1. Pitch slap. We'll get it next time. Tonight, Stefen, the man, the myth, the legend, the bad Name Jamma, is going to share what I expect is a badass idea. So, Stefan, take it away. Let me know what you're thinking.
No, thank you, Dan the Man. I appreciate it. I need those words, very kind words. So this week, this is something, like I've thought about, and I'm kind of surprised they haven't, at least I haven't seen it, made, because I think it would make a good limited series, a good movie. I'm sure they could probably like franchise it, but it would suck after like four. So so maybe like three, I think, if they were going to do it. One is probably where it should stop. But it'd be a good short story too. But it's about a priest who's a serial killer. I'm thinking the title would either be called Blood Hymns, Our Father, or Tabernacle. But I really like Blood Hymns a lot because it sounds like something the 80s would put in neon. Anyway, so it focuses on this priest. I don't really have a name yet, but what I have written is it opens with him giving, like, priests have, I don't want to call them a monologue, but they're called something different when you're in church. It's not a eulogy. I don't know what the term is, so forgive me for not knowing that.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
you know what I'm
the
talking
word
about?
escapes me. Yes.
Okay, so it starts with, like, dust! Right, he's a very charismatic guy. He's loved by the community. He loves the community. You know what I mean? He's a cool priest. He's not like trying to jam Jesus down people's throats. You know, he's just trying to guide them on their journey, right? And if you want to believe in God, cool. But it's just like make sure that people know He cares and that He's there to them, right? Like He wants to be a part of people's lives. So he's a good dude deep down. But here we go. So it's like here's where he starts. Dust. We all start here and return to it. But keep in mind, the gigantic leap you all have made from that tiny particle we've all descended from. Go now in the peace of Christ, right? And then they leave, and then it's a coffee social, right? So either in like the basement of the church or like the little building off to the side where people can gather for church events. So it's like a Knights of Columbus or, whatever group these people belong to. So anyway, he goes down there, chats with people, mingles. Hey, Father, how you doing? Catches up with some of the little old ladies, the regulars, and then he sees a woman sitting alone, right, jittering with, like sugar, right, like she's having a hard time. She's jittering with sugar. He comes over, and as they are talking, right, like he goes over, like, here, let me help you with that, and like gets her sugar for her. It's like, do you want a muffin? Something, make small talk. And then as he's talking with her, the husband comes over and ushers her away from the priest, right? And like a concerning, he becomes concerned, right? Like she says thank you, and he's like, let's go, like that kind of thing. So then he ushers her away, and then he decides that he's gonna look into this, right? And as he leaves his coffee to go follow, one of the nuns says to him, it's not our place to judge or pass judgment, right? To him. And then he's like, sister, like, he says some cool remark back to her, right? But basically this gets him thinking, like how many people who come here on Sunday are actually like good people, because everyone's got some trauma, has got some baggage. So then he starts holding confession. He has a cool monologue where he talks about, it appears to me that we each have our cross to bear like, Jesus. Everyone's got something going on in their world, something they've done that's hard to live with, something that's happened to them that's hard to talk about, and we're a community, and I'm going to, we got to be there for each other. And he talks about he's holding confession. So he goes to confession, and, he starts hearing some of these horror stories about what happening with people. You know what I mean? And, as he's talking, he's picturing them happen to the people he's talking to. He knows the voices, so he knows what's going on. So later on, he has a conversation with God, him and himself, and he's basically kind of losing faith with this. He's like, how are you letting this stuff happen to these people? my flock? How are you letting this happen to them? And he's not, and then he's like, if you're not going to solve this, then I guess I am, right? That's what my purpose is going to be. That's where he kind of decides to become a vigilante. So then he starts going, one by one, looking into these things. The abusive husband, he kills him, right? Like, he meets him in a bar or something and, like, chokes him out with rosary beads in an alley and then spits on him and, walks away or something like that. Then you might hear something about, like, this guy who's, robbing little old ladies. So he visits that guy, kills him, beats him up, right? And it's just a string of that. This guy who is married but is, having affairs with younger women who are underage, right? Takes care of that guy, right? All these kinds of people. He starts just cleaning things up, right? And, eventually cops start getting involved and asking him questions about these people. And he's like, I'm not at liberty to discuss, my parishioners. What they say is between me and God. And he's like, but you're not, like, that whole thing, like, but it's not like Dr. whatever confidentiality, right? Like, he's like, basically he can't tell them anything. They think that the priest is hiding something. And it's this whole thing in the end. And then basically what I think in the end would happen was, like, how priests get ushered from one parish to another?
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, he does something to somebody who's connected, and then that crew of people comes looking for who did this, and the priest has to take these people out, and there's a giant shootout or something within the church, and either he fakes his own death, or he's injured and is in a hospital, or he gets, like, he puts in for a transfer because he doesn't want, like, the church to, he doesn't want anything to happen to his parishioners, or he stays, and he's just injured, and then someone says, like, I hope you make a speedy recovery or something like that. I don't know. But he, like, loses faith in God in the end because it's like, nothing's getting done with you. It's me who's doing this. It's me who's righting these wrongs for these people. So it's like, one, a revenge story in a sense, a serial killer story, but it's also like this man who has given his life to something and is realizing nothing is happening.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're not doing anything.
Yeah. I'm getting, I wrote down Midnight Mass meets Dexter.
Yes.
As, like, when you go into, like, a Hollywood meeting, they're always like, what is it like? You know what I mean? So I'm like, it reminds me a little bit of Midnight Mass and, like, the priest element, and, like, he's sort of like a cool priest.
Yes.
But Dexter and the fact, like, there's sort of a complicated morality behind a serial killer. Yeah, really, really cool. This priest, is he new to being a priest? Is he young? Is he old? Like, we're just trying to get a sense of his character.
I feel like he's probably middle-aged.
Middle-aged.
He's like a middle-aged guy. He's probably somebody who could have. How do you say this? How people say about people like, oh, they could have been anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
He had that kind of quality about him. Like, oh, he could have been anything, and he decided to be a priest. Like, he was popular. People liked him, but he was never a jerk. You know what I mean? He wasn't a bad person. People liked him. He liked people. If somehow it just clicked. So if I had to pick, like, an actor for him, I would say probably, like, Ethan Hawke. You know, like an Ethan Hawke, Oscar Isaac-esque individual. Or even God, what's his name? If Danny Glover was a little younger, I would say like him. Chiwetel Ejiofor, I think, would be great in this role. Yeah, Chiwetel Ejiofor, he would be dope in this role.
Good casting.
Or
Good
Don
casting.
Cheadle, like, either of those two gentlemen, I think, would be dope. So, like, Don Cheadle, Chiwetel Ejiofor, Oscar Isaac, Ethan Hawke, any of those four dudes got this, they would nail it.
I think you can just, like, add them all to your roster and have them play, like, different roles in your movie. Like, maybe one of them can be, like, the police chief. One of them can be, like, the abusive husband or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that's, like, an all-star cast. super cool. Yeah, so I asked like how old is this person and like how new are they to like being a priest? Because I feel like that would inform probably a lot of like that um it sounds like this is a disillusionment story, right?
Yes.
So I know that priests pretty early on in their priesthood have to like contend with some like pretty like stark realities of being a priest. You know, like they have to face dying patients all the time. You know what I mean? In hospitals, you know, they have to face like pretty much the worst of humanity and the best, like pretty early on. So I think for somebody who's like been in the priesthood for a while, like maybe like what is the event or like the thing that like triggers it? Like I can picture like at middle age at the start of this, his faith is probably not like airtight, like there are holes in it. But like what is the event that like totally fractures it? And that's what makes him like go after like these minor like I won't say like being an abusive husband is like a minor thing, but it's like something that's every day, you know, and it's like you know, so maybe there's like what is like the inciting thing, the thing that's like and it could be small too. Like it doesn't have to be like the most horrific thing, but like maybe it involves a child. You know, you know, like what is really going to put this guy's faith to the test?
I think that scene you mentioned, like obviously he's not new to the game, and yeah, you know, like you're saying they gotta. I didn't think about the whole coming face to face with a lot of the horrific sides of, you know, human life. You know, the frailty of that, like early
Yeah,
on. So perhaps he's been in the game a while and he's done some of that. But you know how you get numb to things. You know,
yeah,
like it just kind of becomes go with the flow. So maybe it's not so much he's new, but you know how churches always occasionally they get new people who join. So
yeah,
he sees this woman and she's new, right? And then he sees like her bruises or like smudged makeup with like the purple of the bruise. You know what I'm saying? He sees that and then it's just like, wait, this is going on? Like here? Of all like you know of all places, like when he thinks he knows everything, you know, he thinks this is a good place, people should come just to be part of the community. But it's like, you know, in every community, man, there's rot, you know, there's bad eggs that blend in with the bunch. And
mm.
it's about him realizing, look, you know, you have not built a sanctuary, you know.
I think that's kind of like facing the lie that he's telling himself. You know what I mean? Like it sounds like he's trying to be the cool priest. Um, you know, he's trying to be like charismatic, trying to care for people. But it could be kind of interesting for like the inciting incident to be like somebody turns it back on him. You know, like he tries to give a little bit of like that. You know, well, God works in mysterious ways, sort of speak to somebody who's suffering, and then they like kind of like turn it back on him. Like, you know, like how can you say that? Like it's not helping, and it's not helping me to think about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sort of like making him aware of like that's a lie he's telling himself, or like he's become so numb to other people's pain, and he's just throwing like these trite like aphorisms, you know, to people. Like he's sort of like detached himself from people's pain. So yeah, I don't know. I think that's just a really really cool character to think of, and I also think there's like a bit of narcissism to him too. Like it feels a little bit like a Walter White disillusionment plot too, because like Walter White didn't start off being like fully bad, you know what I mean? But like after a while, he gets a little cocky in his abilities, right? Like I've not seen Breaking Bad, but I know enough of the plot to like sort of get like his trajectory in the series. Like he doesn't start out the bad guy, and by the end, he sort of like is the bad guy. Um, so yeah, I'm interested, Steph. Like this is really cool,
Thanks,
really
buddy.
cool.
But I think you're right. I think that whole ideology, not idea. I don't want to say ideology, but that idea that someone goes to him just like to hear him out, to have him give advice on what they should do, and just like God works in mysterious, and then they're like, can it with that, like I'm a person, talk to me like I'm a person, you know what I mean?
Like, help me.
Yeah, like
give...
actually help me. I don't need to hear what God will do, because right now he's not doing anything. And he doesn't know what to say, and then she's like, you're fucking useless, like why did I even come talk to you?
Yeah.
And then he's stuck there thinking about that, like he saw this woman, now he saw this person, and he's realizing like it's a lie, you know what I mean, like it's all a sham, right? Like, you can be around people, but that doesn't mean you're really there for people. It just means you're around. You're not actually contributing to their lives or doing something. So he's realizing, like, you're supposed to be like a pillar of the community. You're supposed to be somebody people can turn to, and you're supposed to have answers. And he's realizing that's never what he was.
Yeah.
Someone who put a Band-Aid on things or gave people false hope about some bullshit that, maybe will happen if you pray hard enough.
Yeah. And I also think that there's an interesting element to this too. Like, I think even if, like when he goes into like the Dexter mode, like going into killing, like I imagine there's like an immense, like you don't just like kind of overcome your like your Christian or Catholic like moral system overnight. Like I imagine like it's something he struggles with even as he's trying to justify what he's doing. You know what I mean? Like I imagine there's an immense amount of guilt, but also probably an immense amount of like satisfaction in the idea of like I'm taking charge, or maybe he's just like blind to the fact like this is how like in Midnight Mass like the priest like attacks somebody and he says I felt no guilt.
Yeah.
There was nothing to feel guilty about. Like it could go the complete opposite way. Like maybe he doesn't feel any guilt and he's trying to like say like, oh well, that must mean it's like a justified thing because I don't feel guilty. You know what I mean? So it just feels like you're playing with like a big, like the metaphor you like to play with, the sandbox. It's a really cool sandbox that you're playing with, like rich with like really cool characters and just like a lot of really deep conversations, so really cool.
Thanks, Dan.
I'm excited for this. AMC, pick it up.
I think it would be cool. I think the Walter White thing, and I think how you said like Midnight Mass meets Dexter. I think that's really the perfect. That's exactly the tone going for, and I think there is room for I think it might be controversial for a lot of people who are really into their beliefs in religion, but I also think I don't know. There's some accuracy to some of that in some regard. I'm not, people's beliefs are people's beliefs, but I feel like it's these are questions and things that other people think or feel just as well. But you never know. I'll probably go back, look at this, maybe try and tweak something of it. But I appreciate you listening and I appreciate whoever's watching, taking the time to, watch it. But I'll keep you posted if this becomes more.
Really cool stuff. I hope it does.
Thanks, homie.
All right, y'all. So that concludes this episode of 3, 2, 1. Pitch slap. Stay gold, and we'll talk to you soon.